Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I've been following the European Union lack of freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech not really respected there unless you say the right thing. The right thing is determined by other people. So some people decide what's acceptable and what's not, even though you're part of the society. How is that possible? So you got a few people in charge and they tell you what you can and what you cannot do. But they are humans. They have the same rights as you have. And somehow they tell you, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they make it in such a way that they make it legal. Remember, the European Union had some little problems with the Russian media. I think they made a few bannings here and there. And here you have right now, again, the European Union gets on Twitter, X, Elon Musk's X, or Twitter. And they come and say that actually the X, Twitter, is the biggest biggest outlet of Russia disinformation. This is the European Union saying. And it's not a garbage something. No, it's an important person. Let me show you. So if you don't say what they want you to say, then you are they're going to call you names. This is the European Union, the values of the Western civilization that supposedly we try to defend in Ukraine against the evil Russians. Bloomberg. Musk's X is biggest outlet of Russia disinformation, EU says, because people can speak freely over there and they disagree with their garbage, their narrative. That's the point. But hey, they immediately label it however they want. Now, Elon Musk's X was cited as the biggest outlet for peddlers of disinformation as the European Union urged Silicon Valley platforms to step up their vigilance to combat Russia's war of ideas. What does it mean? What do you think to step up their vigilance? The platforms. What do you mean? That means censoring something, or maybe barring, somehow getting X out of some platforms, so you can't have it on your telephone. You can't access it anymore, because that's the way we do. If I have the wrong idea, I get banned. Or I may be incarcerated. That's the next step. That's the next step. I can say what the fuck ever I want. Shouldn't I? If you don't like it, don't listen to it. You have the counter argument, bring it on. That's how it works. You don't ban me because someone else is going to ban you. And someone is going to ban that someone else. And someone is going to ban someone else. And then from banning, you get to arresting or firing. And then arresting and then public executions. Is that where you're going to go to? European Commission Vice President, so she's not a garbage collector right here. European Commission Vice President Vera Jourova, she's from Czech Republic or from Slovakia, one of these two, said platforms need to act ahead of national and European elections over the next year. What does it mean? They have to act. They have to start censoring again or no? They have to act ahead of the national and European election. That means the Russians are so smart and so strong that these guys can't cope with the Russians. Can you believe that? Now, in the past 1 year and a half, or even more, but there's nothing good coming from Russia, we heard. Nothing. Just read articles and you tell me the only good things that come are either people that speak bad about their own countries and so on, and they are living somewhere else, or bad stuff. Only bad stuff. The Russians are not good at anything if you just listen to these guys. Their military suck, their society is a little bit, their economy, zero, political system is there's a tyrant over there, there's no democracy like here, mass media is not good, but you have Ukraine next door. But it's okay. Ukraine is the pinnacle of European values. And then how come these Russians are so good at something? Something evil. Only evil. Like the other guy in the 1920s, 30s and early 40s. Only bad stuff. Only. Okay. All right. Because I met a lot of people like that in my life. to be only bad or only good. And I'm guaranteeing you have never met one person only good or only bad. But somehow there are these kind of people in the world that are only good and some are only bad that we never meet. But we are told about. The key word is told. That's by someone else. Anyway, so you have here this woman who wants the platforms to act. And I'm calling this... Anyway, that's not what I want. Hello, I'm back here. And I'm quoting, this is a multi-million euro weapon of mass manipulation aimed both internally at the Russians as well as Europeans and the rest of the world, Zhurova told reporters. Do you think that the Russians have more money than the Western media? So do you think that the Russian government and the Russian media, with their 3 or 4 or 5 outlets, they have more power of disinformation than the Western media, the money? Do you think so? I don't think so. I don't think so. They banned a few, just get what? Sputnik, Russia Today, and maybe, I don't even know if, how is that, RIA Novosti or whatever it's called, I can't remember it, I think that's the way it's called, are functioning over there. Sputnik, Russia Today, these are the ones. And this guy says disinformation on Twitter, and you got the rest. So you got Twitter, and you got the rest, and somehow Twitter is the one that has everything. You got YouTube, you got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got the regular outlets, Deutsche Welle, BBC, Agence France Presse, all that garbage. And Twitter is the one. We have to eliminate that one. We eliminate that one, we have control over everything. Here, I can say all I want, or all I know. Not all I want, all I know. Why? Because these guys will say, "Hope that should not go." And they're going to say, well, it's something that you violated the community's guidelines or something. Let's see what other garbage this person has to say here. And she says here, the very large platforms, all right, must address this risk, especially that we have to expect that the Kremlin and others will be active before our European elections. What does that mean? Censoring. Why? Because they will deem everything that runs against their narrative as being misinformation, disinformation. Well, let me give you a... all right, let's go here. Let me read you this. X, I'm quoting X, the former Twitter, who is not under the code anymore, is the platform with the largest ratio of mis- or disinformation posts. According to whom? Fact checkers. I trust those fact checkers as I trust a juvenile. That's how much I trust them. Why? Because that's the level. Who do you think is going to be over there? Who do you think is going to fact check? What kind of person? And what kind of evidence they will use to fact check? I'm going to give you an example. When I was here in United States in college, you had to, write certain papers for your grade and so on. So you had to write essays and whatever you were supposed to. But the requirement was that you were supposed to use only peer reviewed material, documentation, which you go in the freaking their database, university database, in their library, virtual library, and you find only certain kind of books over there, peer reviewed by themselves. It's a bunch of guys who agree on a narrative, and they just quote one another like a circle of idiots. If you come with someone that is not peer reviewed by the same gatekeepers of the truth, that was unacceptable. Even though that was a truthful and a factual book. No, because it was not peer reviewed. How do you think these fact checkers are checking our work or whatever I say here? If I say something, let's say I reach a conclusion based on, 7 books. I reach my conclusion. I say, I think this is the one. They can say, no, that's incorrect. Fact check. Why? Those 7 books that you cited, do you think they're going to be able to get all those 7 books and reach my conclusion? That's my interpretation of those 7 books. How do you think people get to a conclusion? With the information. So that means nobody should talk. Why? Because you're going to say, wait a minute, but if you include that one over there, would change this one. That's true. But then nobody talks. So who decides this disinformation and misinformation? There's a certain kind of ministry of truth somewhere? I'm guessing. All right, let's see here. The EU released reports on how each of the major tech companies, including Meta Platforms, Inc., Facebook, Alphabet Inc., Google, and TikTok, are faring in the battle against disinformation. So they're losing. So those are, when you see those guys, those are the bad guys. Just look like that. Sometimes when the government tells you something, usually believe the opposite, just as a, how do I call it, by default, I think. The pilot also showed that disinformation actors were found to have significant more followers than the non-disinformation counterparts. Okay, I'm not going to read this garbage more. It's all right here. She noted several steps taken by the platform to combat Russian influence. Google told the bloc that it terminated more than 400 channels involved in Russian influence operations in the first 4 months of the year. That means if they decide that you say something that they don't like and they consider this is this and this is that and you support that and you support that, they close you. And you say, well, that's their right, but you have X. What about it? They just, here's Slovakia. Right here, Slovakia. And let me tell you two stories where you have disinformation from the West. You have the Ukrainians reporting that the Kakhovka Dam, remember the Kakhovka Dam on the Dnieper River, was blown up. The Ukrainians said with no evidence of who did it, they said the Russians did it. What did these guys do here? They picked that and they vomited over us, saying, yes, the Russians did it. And right now, if you go and ask someone, it's a given that the Russians did it. Was there an investigation? How did they determine? They said it was this blown up. They said. And the Russians said the same thing. They said, hey, the Ukrainians did it. Did you hear that anywhere? No. Why is that? Why did the Ukrainians had the truth, but the Russians did not? Was there an investigation? Again, what are the facts? And they just parrot it. And right now, if you go and ask about it, or you go, let's say I'm going and be interviewed by CNN, they will go with the Kakhovka Dam as a given that it was blown up by the Russians. It's not a given. I don't know. I don't know who blew it. Neither they know. The Russians and the Ukrainians might know. Why? Because let's say the Americans did it. Maybe the Russians don't know if it was the Americans. I'm just giving an example. That's one. And the other one, I just covered it a minute ago. It was that Russian Black Sea fleet commander. The Ukrainians reported, the military reported that that guy was killed, blown up in the Sevastopol headquarters attack. Successful Ukrainian attack with the missiles. They said, I covered that 2 days ago or yesterday, and said, well, the guy the admiral was killed. He showed up. You can see him over there on video. And these guys promoted that garbage, and now they all say, well, what is disinformation? Disinformation. I never heard Ukrainska Pravda or Ukrinform, one of them that reported that garbage, saying, oh, that's disinformation. How about that, Ms. Yelemaka Marova? How about that one? No, they still operate just fine. And the media that picked that from the Ukrainians as, truth, the same as the Kakhovka, still operate. How about that? I mean, these guys think like children. All good, all bad. Life is sometimes, or a lot of gray in it. They know we're gonna just get rid of all the crime in the world, like children. We're gonna make a better world. There will be no more hunger. There will be no more crime. Yeah, that's great, but impossible unless everybody. You can't do it. Oh, we're going to take the weapons again. Nobody will commit any crimes. Really? How infantile that is. The criminals will still have the weapons. How are you going to get rid of that? With control? Yeah, okay. And if they're not going to use weapons, this kind of weapons, what weapons are going to use? Baseball bats and hatchets and what? My God, these guys are infant. Let's finish kill the hunger. It's the global hunger. Yeah, really? Really? Yeah. All right. It's beautiful, but it's infantile. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.